Once again, Britain has been thrown into shock as Prince William, heir to the throne and eldest son of Princess Diana, has made a stunning revelation. He claims to have uncovered the final truth behind his mother's mysterious death. For more than 2 decades, Diana's tragic passing in a devastating car crash in Paris has haunted the public, fueling countless theories, debates, and suspicions about what really happened. From paparazzi chases to political conspiracies, even whispers of royal involvement, every angle has been examined. Yet no explanation has ever brought closure. And now, William, with the eyes of a son who once witnessed the unbearable pain of losing his mother, declares he has found the answer. William's message is far more than a personal statement. It has instantly reignited a firestorm of emotions across the nation: sympathy, outrage, and a deep hunger for justice that has never truly faded since 1997. Diana, forever remembered as the people's princess, was never just another royal figure. To millions, her death was never simply a tragic accident. It was a mystery wrapped in shadows, a story the royal establishment seemed determined to keep buried. This announcement, therefore, is not merely about giving justice back to Diana. It could mark a historic turning point for the House of Windsor itself. William's words have raised chilling questions. Could his revelations expose a conspiracy that the world has long suspected? Could the truth reshape not only how Diana is remembered, but also how the monarchy itself is judged? After years of silence and tension, William's declaration feels like a time bomb finally detonating, striking at the very heart of Britain and the Commonwealth. Is this the moment when justice for Diana is finally delivered? Or will his revelations unleash even darker secrets, plunging the monarchy into a storm unlike any it has ever faced? One thing is certain: the world is watching, waiting for every word William has yet to reveal. Sarah's silent regret. For decades, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Diana's older sister, remained mostly silent. She avoided interviews, stayed away from Buckingham gossip, and rarely stepped into the media spotlight. But in May 2023, during a private family gathering in Norfolk, she opened up for the first time. What she revealed stunned even those closest to her. Sarah had not only introduced Diana to Prince Charles in 19, but she had also briefly dated him before Diana entered the picture. The irony wasn't lost on her. It haunted her. At the time, Sarah and Charles shared long talks about literature, politics, and the state of the monarchy. They met during a countryside hunt in Lincolnshire. Though it wasn't a fairy tale romance, it was genuine. But Sarah's flippant remark to a Daily Mirror reporter, "I wouldn't marry Charles if he were the dustman or the King of England," ended the relationship. Just weeks later, Diana was invited to Balmoral, and the rest, as the world believes, was history. Sarah believed she had handed her sister a crown, but over time it felt more like a curse. When years later, Diana confided to Sarah that she felt like a sacrificial lamb. According to a letter written in 1993, Diana told her sister that she had been chosen for optics, not love. Cora held on to that letter for 30 years, never showing it to anyone until William came asking. The words, written in blue ink and folded neatly into an envelope marked S, described Charles' coldness, Camilla's shadow, and Diana's growing belief that something dark was coming. Sarah said she never knew how serious Diana's warnings were until after the crash. What broke Sarah's silence wasn't just guilt, it was William's visit. In early 2023, William asked her directly, "What did she say to you that summer?" With tears, Sarah handed over the letter. She told William, "I didn't think it would matter. I was wrong." That single moment altered William's entire understanding of the years leading up to his mother's death. For the first time, he saw it not as an accident, but as the inevitable result of a slow, deliberate unraveling. At the center of that unraveling was the oldest wound of all, the affair that broke Diana's spirit. It didn't begin in Paris or end in Kensington. It began in secret phone calls, clandestine meetings, and a Camilla-shaped shadow that haunted every royal room Diana walked into. The affair that broke the princess. By 1980, Diana Spencer was already being groomed for royal life. She was only 19 years old when her courtship with Prince Charles began, and by February 1981 they were engaged. But long before the sapphire ring and global fanfare, there was Camilla Parker Bowles. Charles' relationship with Camilla had never truly ended. Diana suspected it early. Just weeks after the honeymoon in Gibraltar, she found photos, letters, and even a bracelet engraved with Camilla's initials, GF for Girl Friday. That discovery devastated her. Diana later revealed in private interviews with Andrew Morton in 1992 that her bulimia began shortly after finding the bracelet. Her weight dropped from 135 pounds to under 110 within 2 months. She felt unworthy, discarded, and increasingly isolated inside the stiff walls of Buckingham Palace. Charles, meanwhile, continued his double life, publicly smiling, privately whispering sweet nothings to Camilla. Diana's emotional breakdowns were labeled hysteria, and she was often treated more like a PR problem than a person. In her 1990 BBC Panorama interview, watched by over 23 million viewers, Diana finally said what the palace refused to admit. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. That quote shattered royal protocol. It wasn't just scandal, it was mutiny. But behind that calm face and poised voice was a woman drowning. Diana began making risky decisions. She admitted to having affairs, not for love, but for power. One close friend claimed she once whispered, "If I can't be loved, I'll be feared." Diana's desperation grew with each passing year. Her 1994 appearance at the Serpentine Gallery in that infamous revenge dress was a statement seen around the world. It was the same night Charles publicly admitted to his infidelity in a TV interview. The dress wasn't just fashion, it was fury. Diana was no longer begging for love. She was exposing it, but inside she was crumbling. She wrote in a 1996 letter to her therapist, "Every time I smile for the cameras, a little piece of me dies." By the time she met Dodi, she wasn't looking for love, she was looking for escape. But the final escape would lead her straight into the shadows of Paris. And what happened that night wasn't just a chaotic crash, it was a series of choices, warnings, and failures that began long before that tunnel and ended in a silence that still echoes through the palace halls. Revenge and rebellion. By early 1996, Princess Diana had stopped trying to fit into the mold the royal family expected of her. The marriage was officially over. Queen Elizabeth II had formally advised both Diana and Charles to divorce in December, and the decree was finalized in August 1996. With her title stripped, no longer Her Royal Highness, and her security reduced, Diana felt freer in public, yet more exposed than ever. What began as heartbreak slowly transformed into rebellion. She stopped hiding her emotions, her causes, and her fury. Behind closed doors, Diana began crafting a plan to regain control over her life and her legacy. Her diary entries from January to May 1997 show a shift in tone from despair to vengeance. She wrote about outshining Charles in the press, gaining global support, and using her popularity to embarrass the monarchy. She stopped asking for permission to attend events and instead made surprise appearances that stole headlines. One friend later revealed that Diana referred to the media frenzy around her as the only sword I have left. This rebellion wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. In June 1997, Diana auctioned off 79 of her gowns at Christie's in New York, raising over $5.7 million for Daughter AIDS and cancer charities. But it also made a statement. She was shedding the past. Days later, she began a highly publicized romance with Dodi Fayed, son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. The relationship shocked the public and reportedly enraged palace officials. Photos of Diana and Dodi vacationing on a yacht in the French Riviera circulated worldwide. Sources close to Diana say this was no accident, it was a message. By August 1997, Diana's phone calls were being monitored by multiple tabloids and intelligence agencies. One MI5 insider later confirmed in a leaked report that Diana's communications with Dodi raised potential concerns for national optics. Some feared she might move abroad, marry a Muslim man, and take her sons with her. Diana knew she was being watched, and she leaned into it. Her journal entry on August 28th, just 3 days before her death, included the phrase, "They want me quiet, I'll speak louder." That final act of defiance would take her straight to Paris and into the hands of her enemies. But Paris would not offer the freedom Diana sought. In fact, it offered the opposite. The Paris Trap. On the night of August 30th, 1997, Diana and Dodi dined at the Ritz Paris, a hotel owned by Dodi's father. Their plan was to head to Dodi's apartment on Rue Arsène Housset, a short 5-minute drive, but photographers had been stationed outside the hotel for hours. To avoid them, a decoy car was sent out the front, while Diana, Dodi, and their bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones exited through the back. The car they entered, a 1990 Mercedes-Benz S280, was driven by Henri Paul, the hotel's deputy head of security. Henri Paul wasn't supposed to be driving that night. According to Ritz staff, he had consumed 2 Ricard pastis and at least 3 beers earlier that evening. Blood tests later confirmed his blood alcohol level was over 1.75 grain per liter, more than 3 times the legal limit in France. Still, Diana and Dodi trusted him. No seatbelts were worn, something uncharacteristic of Diana, who was famously cautious about road safety. The car pulled away, and within 4 minutes, they entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. What happened inside that tunnel has been disputed ever since. The Mercedes struck the 13th pillar at an estimated speed of 65 km/h. Dodi died instantly. Henri Paul's body was found pinned behind the wheel. Rees-Jones survived with critical facial injuries. Diana was still alive, trapped in the wreckage. First responders noted she was conscious, whispering, and in pain. She was extracted from the vehicle, but, instead of being rushed immediately to the hospital, was treated on site for 40 minutes, a controversial decision that many believe cost her life. Even more disturbing is the complete absence of security footage. The Pont de l'Alma tunnel had 14 cameras, but none were recording. French authorities claimed the system was outdated and did not retain footage. A traffic camera directly above the tunnel was also malfunctioning that night. This technological blackout only fueled suspicions. In Diana's private notes, discovered later by William, she wrote in June 1997, "If I die in a car, check the cameras. That's where the answers will be." The cameras failed, and the questions only multiplied. As the media tried to spin an explanation, William wasn't ready to accept it. Nearly 3 decades later, in a quiet investigation of his own, he uncovered something long buried. Operation Paget, sealed files. And within those pages were whispers of warnings that his mother had once written and had been ignored. Operation Paget and the unheard warnings. By 2004, after years of speculation, the British Metropolitan Police launched Operation Paget, an official inquiry into the death of Princess Diana. Headed by Lord John Stevens, the operation examined over 175 claims, interviewed more than 300 witnesses, and reviewed thousands of documents from both British and French authorities. But one piece of evidence immediately caught the attention of Prince William when he accessed the records in 2023. A handwritten letter dated October 1993 in his mother's handwriting, predicting her death. The letter, given to her butler Paul Burrell, read, "My husband is planning an accident in my car. Brake failure and serious head injury." Diana believed the motive was to clear the path for Charles to marry the woman he loved, Camilla. At the time, most thought the note was an overreaction, but the language was chillingly specific. Burrell had kept the letter hidden for 11 years, revealing it only after Diana's death, and yet it had never been included in official royal records until William requested it. William also reviewed reports from Mohammed Al-Fayed, who insisted Diana and Dodi were under surveillance. According to declassified documents, MI6 had agents in Paris that night. One claimed Diana's movements were logged in real time. More shockingly, some of these logs were redacted in the final public report. When William pushed for access, he found inconsistencies, pages marked "lost," timelines that didn't align, and digital recordings that had allegedly been erased. The more he uncovered, the clearer it became. Someone had tried to control Diana's story. Yet the most gut-wrenching discovery came not from a document, but from an interview buried in a forgotten archive. A 95 session between Diana and her lawyer, Lord Mishcon, included chilling audio of Diana saying, "If I disappear, check the brakes." William listened to that recording 3 times in a row. The voice was unmistakable. The fear was real. Diana had not been paranoid. She had been perceptive. And the very people she feared had, at best, ignored her, or at worst, ensured she would never speak again. For William, at minimum, this was no longer about theories, it was about truth. And truth, he realized, wasn't in the reports. It was in the details that were erased. So he returned to the one place untouched by red tape and cover-ups, his mother's private jewelry box. What he found there would change everything. The jewelry box that shouldn't exist. In early April 2023, Prince William was invited to view a newly restored collection from Princess Diana's personal effects. Long hidden in velvet-lined trays and preserved documents was something unexpected. A jewelry box he hadn't seen since he was 15 years old, just days after Diana's funeral in 1997. The golden box had been packed away, supposedly under royal protection, but its sudden reappearance after 26 years raised unsettling questions. The jewelry box wasn't just a container, it was a memory vault. As William opened the lid, the scent of Diana's perfume, her signature fragrance from Guerlain's 1983 collection, clung to the velvet. Inside were relics of his childhood, a locket from St. Tropez, a brooch she wore to a 1995 children's charity gala, and a sapphire ring that looked identical to one reported missing in 1998. But something was off. The items weren't arranged the way Diana always kept them. One compartment was jammed, another looked recently scratched. Someone had clearly handled it. Even worse, several key items were missing. Diana's signature gold bracelet, engraved with her initials and given to her by William on his 13th birthday, was replaced with a replica. Her famous sapphire pendant, worn at the 1996 Met Gala, was gone. In its place was a worn strip of blue fabric, torn and hastily tucked under the lining. Then, tucked into a loose compartment under the mirror, William found a half-torn envelope dated August 1997, containing only a few words in Diana's handwriting. For William, when the time is right. But it wasn't until William returned to that box weeks later, this time alone, that he discovered the hidden truth his mother had left behind. A false bottom, a hidden envelope, and a letter that finally gave him the answers he'd searched for since 1997. Diana's final message. In July 2023, William revisited the jewelry box late one evening. Something about the base seemed uneven. When he lifted the inner lining, a panel popped loose, revealing a thin compartment. Inside was an envelope neatly labeled in Diana's handwriting, "For William and Catherine, in time." It contained 2 letters. The first, written in January 1997, months before Diana's death, spoke of her hopes for her eldest son's future, her admiration for a girl with a quiet smile, a likely reference to Catherine Middleton, whom William hadn't even met yet. In that letter, Diana wrote about the kind of partner she wished for William, someone loyal, graceful, and unafraid of kindness. She said she dreamed of watching him marry in front of millions. She warned of the danger of cold traditions and pleaded with him to always choose love over protocol. For William, reading his mother's words nearly 26 years later felt like a time loop, as if she had reached across decades to guide him. But the second letter was darker. In it, Diana explained that she had removed 3 specific items: her sapphire pendant, engraved bracelet, and gala brooch, from the official royal inventory. She feared they would be stolen or redistributed by force after her death. She marked them with dots under the lining of the box and ended the letter chillingly. "If you find this, something went wrong. Protect what's left." She signed it simply, "Mommy, for William." The message confirmed what he had suspected. Diana knew something was coming. She had tried to protect her legacy, and she had been right. But Diana's letters weren't just emotional. They were legal. They contained clues, dates, and proof. William wasn't going to the press, not yet. He was going into the palace archives, and what he found would reveal how far the deception had reached. The palace's hidden trail. By August 2023, Prince William quietly ordered a private internal audit of royal storage records dating back to 1997. With help from trusted aides and a discreet forensic team, he traced the movements of Diana's belongings. What he discovered was alarming. Between 1998 and 2002, several boxes were relocated from Althorp House to Clarence House, then to Highgrove, all without proper documentation. Gaps in inventory reports, missing logs, and more importantly, unknown access. One name kept reappearing: Camilla Parker Bowles. In a 2001 entry logged by a junior archivist, Camilla had requested privacy while reviewing personal effects stored in a sealed room. Williams' team later confirmed fingerprint traces on Diana's jewelry box matched a former Clarence House staffer closely linked to Camilla's inner circle. When asked for comment, the individual, now retired, refused to speak. But another former footman recalled a strange moment in 2010 when Camilla was seen slipping a sapphire pendant into her handbag, then turning pale when spotted. Further inquiry revealed that a Mayfair jeweler had serviced a sapphire piece in 2011 on behalf of the Duchess of Cornwall. The records were clear. The description matched the pendant Diana wore to the 1996 Met Gala. That repair receipt, alongside Diana's letter, proved it had been removed. The palace's silence for over 2 decades was no longer just avoidance. It was complicity. William compiled the findings, photographed everything, and stored them in a locked safe beneath Kensington Palace, known only to 3 people. And just when it seemed William had found all there was to find, a new leak changed everything. A media firestorm erupted in October 2023. The jewelry, the letters, the lies, the world now wanted answers, and Queen Camilla could no longer hide behind the palace walls. Today, everything changed. On October 5th, 2023, a British tabloid broke the story. Missing Diana heirs linked to Queen Camilla. Within hours, it spread globally. BBC, CNN, and Sky News ran segments. Social media platforms flooded with clips of Diana, her jewelry, and angry reactions from around the world. Within 48 hours, the hashtag Justice for Diana trended in over 23 countries. The public fury was overwhelming, especially from those too young to remember '97, but raised on stories of Diana's warmth and injustice. Camilla, once cautiously accepted as queen consort, was now under intense scrutiny. By October 8th, protesters gathered outside Clarence House and Buckingham Palace, laying flowers and holding signs that read, "Return what was hers," and "Habom, she was always watching." A YouGov poll released on October 10th showed Camilla's approval rating had plummeted below 22%, the lowest for a senior royal since the 1990s. Even longtime royal defenders struggled to defend her. Inside the palace, crisis meetings were held daily. King Charles reportedly called a family unity summit on October 12th, but William refused to attend unless Camilla publicly addressed the matter. She remained silent. Then, on October 20th, Camilla made an appearance at a charity event without a single piece of royal jewelry. The message was clear. Behind closed doors, it was confirmed that several of Diana's marked pieces were returned to William and placed in a secure vault, but the damage was done. William later gave a speech at a children's hospice on November 3rd, during which he read a line from Diana's letter. "Choose love over protocol." The words were subtle but powerful. Those who knew the story understood. Diana's final message had reached its audience. The brotherhood divided. Harry's response. While William quietly pursued his investigation, Prince Harry remained thousands of miles away in California, unaware of his brother's discoveries. When news of the jewelry scandal broke in October 2023, Harry's response was swift but complicated. Sources close to the Duke of Sussex revealed that he had been deliberately kept out of William's investigation, a decision that drove an even deeper wedge between the brothers. Harry learned about Diana's hidden letters not from William, but from a TMZ report. The revelation stung deeply. In a private phone call with William in late October 2023, Harry reportedly demanded access to their mother's letters and questioned why he had been excluded from such a monumental discovery. William's response was measured but firm. "You chose your path. Harry, this is mine." The conversation, according to Palace insiders, lasted less than 10 minutes and ended with Harry hanging up. It marked the first time the brothers had spoken in over 8 months. Harry's camp later leaked to American media that he felt betrayed once again by the institution and accused William of hoarding their mother's memory. But there was more to Harry's exclusion than sibling rivalry. William had discovered something in Diana's letters that he couldn't bring himself to share with Harry. A third letter, dated July 1997, in which Diana expressed deep concern about Harry's emotional state. She wrote about his anger that burns like fire, and her fear that he might carry this pain into every room he enters. Diana had specifically instructed that this letter only be shown to Harry when he finds peace. William made the difficult decision that Harry, still embroiled in public feuds and legal battles, wasn't ready for that revelation. The weight of protecting both his mother's wishes and his brother's well-being fell entirely on William's shoulders, a burden that aged him visibly throughout the autumn of 2023. The scientific analysis, what the evidence really shows, as the public outcry intensified, William took an unprecedented step. He authorized independent scientific analysis of Diana's jewelry box and its contents. Working with experts from the University of Cambridge's forensic department, the investigation revealed details that would further substantiate Diana's fears. Carbon dating of the paper used in Diana's hidden letters confirmed they were written between January and August 1997. Handwriting analysis by 3 separate experts verified 99.7% certainty that the letters were genuine. Most significantly, microscopic analysis of the jewelry box revealed traces of unusual substances, chemicals consistent with certain types of surveillance devices used in the 1990s. Dr. Margaret Thornfield, a forensic expert who worked on the analysis, stated in a confidential report, "The evidence suggests this box was subjected to electronic surveillance for an extended period. The residue patterns are consistent with listening devices that were standard MI5 equipment in that era." The implications were staggering. If Diana's jewelry box had been bugged, it meant intelligence services had been monitoring her private conversations in her most intimate moments. This discovery prompted William to expand his investigation beyond the palace, seeking answers from former intelligence officers willing to break their silence. One former MI5 operative, speaking on condition of anonymity, confirmed what many had long suspected. Diana was considered a security risk from 1995 onwards. Her unpredictability, her relationships, her public statements, they all created what we called operational concerns. Did we monitor her? Yes. Did we know about her fears regarding an accident? The answer to that should terrify you. William compiled this evidence into a 127-page dossier that he personally delivered to the Metropolitan Police Commissioner in November 2023. The file remains classified, but sources suggest it contains enough evidence to warrant reopening the official investigation into Diana's death. The palace's desperate damage control. As William's evidence mounted and public pressure reached a fever pitch, Buckingham Palace launched the most comprehensive damage control operation since the 1997 crisis. King Charles, reportedly furious at Camilla's exposure, authorized the release of previously classified documents in an attempt to shift the narrative. On November 15, 2023, the palace released a statement acknowledging that certain personal effects of the late Princess of Wales were improperly handled in the years following her death. The statement, carefully worded by a team of lawyers, stopped short of admitting theft, but conceded that procedures for handling royal inheritances were not followed to the letter. Camilla's response came through her private secretary, who issued a statement claiming the Queen Consort had acted only to preserve items she believed were at risk of being lost or damaged. The statement insisted that any jewelry in her possession had been safeguarded with the intention of eventual return to the princes. But the palace's attempts at damage control only fueled more questions. Royal biographer Andrew Morton, who had worked closely with Diana on her explosive 1992 book, revealed that Diana had specifically mentioned her fear of theft in their interviews. She told me, if something happens to me, they'll take everything. They'll rewrite history to suit themselves. Morton disclosed in a BBC interview. The palace's credibility reached a new low when investigative journalists discovered that several of Diana's items had appeared in discreet auction houses between 2005 and 2015, sold by anonymous consignors. When confronted with this evidence, palace officials claimed ignorance, but the pattern was undeniable. Diana's belongings had been systematically dispersed, possibly to prevent exactly the kind of discovery William had made: the international ripple effect. The revelations about Diana's jewelry and letters didn't just shake Britain. They sent shockwaves through royal houses across Europe and beyond. The story highlighted uncomfortable questions about how royal families handle the legacies of deceased members and sparked investigations in other monarchies. In Spain, questions arose about items belonging to the late Queen Mercedes. In Sweden, the royal family proactively released an inventory of all items belonging to deceased royals under 1950. The Danish monarchy announced new protocols for handling royal inheritances. The ripple effect was clear. Diana's story had exposed a problem that extended far beyond Britain. International press coverage was particularly damaging. The New York Times ran a week-long series titled "The Crown's Hidden Shame." French media, still sensitive about the Paris crash, reopened discussions about the investigation's adequacy. Even traditionally respectful Commonwealth media began asking pointed questions about the monarchy's transparency. The most damaging coverage came from Germany's Der Spiegel, which published a detailed analysis of how the British royal family had systematically erased Diana's voice in the years following her death. The article, based on interviews with former palace staff and government officials, painted a picture of deliberate historical revisionism that went far beyond the jewelry scandal. Queen Camilla's reputation suffered globally. A poll conducted across 12 countries showed that her approval rating had fallen below 30% in every nation surveyed. More significantly, support for the monarchy itself began to waver, particularly among younger demographics who saw Diana's treatment as emblematic of institutional corruption. The truth was never buried. The princess they tried to forget had found her voice again through her son, through hidden letters, and through a box that should have stayed lost, but didn't. The truth was hidden in plain sight, in Diana's own words, in William's silent grief, and in the royal shadows too afraid to face it. But now, the silence is broken. Diana's voice has returned through her son, her letters, and her legacy. Justice may never come with handcuffs, but it comes with clarity. The woman who once said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," had the last word after all. From beyond the grave, she had exposed the very people who tried to erase her. William's investigation continues quietly but determinedly. The dossier grows thicker each month as more witnesses come forward, more documents surface, and more inconsistencies in the official story emerge. Diana's sons may have taken different paths, but her truth unites them in ways neither fully understands yet. The jewelry has been returned, but the questions remain. The letters have been revealed, but their implications continue to unfold. The palace may have acknowledged its failures, but the full scope of what happened to Diana before and after her death is still being uncovered. What was done to Diana wasn't just betrayal, it was history rewritten. And now, finally, we remember the people's princess speaks once more, not through tabloid headlines or conspiracy theories, but through the careful, methodical truth-seeking of the son who never stopped loving her, never stopped missing her, and never stopped believing that she deserved better. In the end, Diana got what she always wanted, to be remembered not as a victim, but as a mother who left her children the tools they needed to find their way back to the truth. And in finding that truth, William didn't just honor his mother's memory, he reclaimed it.